The usage count for the S-grade item Gampong has been recharged. He then calls the 7th star of the Big Dipper, and all the stars gather. There is a line, and the constellations ask him what he wants from them. He replies that he wants to cut off the tie the throne has with its owner and requests them to lend him their sword. They ask him if he knows what that entails and think about the ruler's throne, the reward item for the 4th scenario. This throne allows the user to borrow the powers of one of the rulers of the dark dimensions. He thinks it will be handy to have such powers for now, and he will be able to control Yongyuk and neutralize his enemies there. However, their world will end as a result, which is the price he must pay for borrowing such great power. Even the constellations don't want anything to do with him, and they ask him how he dares to challenge the owner of the throne. Dokya replies that he is not trying to fight them, and he only wants to cut off the tie between him and the throne. The constellation says he cannot handle the plausibility and will die because of it, but Dokya says that is his decision. They agree and ask him to start the process, putting their powers into the sword. He is notified that the S+ grade item for Yin Demon Decapitator has been upgraded to a constellation artifact. The constellations say they respect his decision, although he may die there, and they will remember him always. It is revealed that the 4 Yin Demon Decapitator is a sword made to be used in rituals, and it is one of the few items that can cut the tie a constellation artifact has with the constellation that owns it. Dokya observes the true power of the 4 Yin Demon Decapitator. One may think that becoming king using the ruler's throne would make it easier to complete the remaining scenarios. The people wonder if he is going to destroy the stone, and they want to stop him from doing so. He shouts at him and asks him to hurry, and he stabs the sword into the throne with all the power he has received from the constellations. There is a crack in the stone, and with this, it has been destroyed successfully. The protection cast on the constellation artifact, the ruler's throne, has been removed. The sub-scenario has ended, and a notification appears, saying a mysterious ruler has noticed the sudden change in this world. Dokkabe shouts at him and calls him an insignificant worm, and the constellations ask Dokya to prepare himself for the burden of plausibility. He thinks he will be fine because things have to seem probable for something to be plausible, and he has done everything he could to make things look plausible. Suddenly, he feels so much pain in his body. Dokya laughs and asks if he really thinks he would get out of this unscathed. It feels as if his body is going to shred apart, and his every body part starts bleeding. Quinn and S are shocked to see his condition, and after a while he is notified that the constellation Naval Warfare God is looking at him. The constellation Bald Army General is looking at him, and the constellation The Last Hero of Hiwon is looking at him. As Dokya feels his pain subsiding, he can feel that the constellations are sharing his burden of plausibility. He receives multiple notifications that the constellations are looking at him. Dokya is not happy with this, and a constellation asks him if this is the story they wanted him to tell, and they will be watching him, the king of the world without a king. The 4th scenario ended abruptly, and he achieved a non-existent achievement after a while. A new fable was created, and the fable, The King of the World Without a King, was created due to an unexpected event. The reward calculations will be delayed, and Dokya thinks there is no next regression for him, so he will end the story in this world. After a while, Dokkabe comes to him and says he shouldn't have done that, and he will personally make sure that he regrets what he did today for the rest of his life. Dokya says he must be mad since he won the round, and with this, he has managed a fable during the 4th scenario as planned. The people don't seem happy with his decision to destroy the throne, so they ask Dokkabe to give them another ruler's throne, and they will take part in the scenario again. Dokkabe replies that the scenario has ended and no one can change that. Whatever happens to all of them from now on is all because of this man. He snaps his fingers and says he would love to see him try a world without a king. He transports the people from there and says he will see how long they can survive without a leader. Dokya is also shocked by the situation and wonders where everyone has gone because this wasn't supposed to happen. Hiwon, Sanga, Minab, and everyone disappear in front of him. Dokkabe asks if this world ends. It's all because of him. Dokya is shocked by the situation, and soon after, he is the only one who stays there. He shouts at Dokkabe, who is watching him, smiling, and Dokya disappears from there. Dokkabe laughs and says he will be sure to keep an eye out to see how long he will last. However, a notification appears that he has obtained 10,000 coins as a reward for completing the fourth scenario. Dokja is unconscious and dreams about a time when some boys at school bullied him. One of them grabs him by the neck and asks him to dare to attack him. He tells him to go and make front-page news like his mother. At that time, Dokja thought he could kill them if they were Youngyuk. Now he's watching his past life and wonders if this is a dream. He reflects that he was really into TWSA because he used to have pathetic daydreams like that. Of all the dreams he could have, he thought about Minabsong and wondered what he was up to these days. He heard Minab went to a good university and got a great job, despite being bullied. He activates his personal skill, the fourth wall, and wonders if Minab is still alive. He also activates level 3 of the Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. When he comes into consciousness, he hears Hong's voice calling him and asks if he can hear her. He is also confused as to why she is at the school. He finds himself in his military office and observes that everyone seems to have been teleported to a place with personal ties. Mid-level Dokabi must have created solo scenarios for each individual. Even if this was independent of the main scenario, he would have been held responsible for pulling something like this. He tries to talk to Heewon, asking her to keep herself safe, saying that he will come to find her soon. With this, he deactivates level 3 of the Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. He wakes up on a rooftop and finds himself on a rooftop. He thinks he should have been teleported to a place he knows. He then recognizes the place and hopes he would have ended up anywhere but here. A few constellations are excited to hear what he said. This is the rooftop of Microsoft, the company he used to work for. He wonders why he ended up there of all places and remembers that every time he would get an earful from his managers, he would come up there with Mr. Young to pass the time. He wonders if his manager is still alive. A notification appears that 10 days remain until the 5th scenario begins. A sub-scenario has been started as a filler, and its clear condition is that they have to survive in the ruined city for 10 days. They must eat 3 meals a day, sleep for 6 hours every night, and pay a survival fee of 500 coins before going to sleep. If they fail to perform any of the 3 conditions, they will be met with a penalty. Dokja thinks it is the perfect time to stock up on coins. Suddenly, he feels there is no king in the Chaogu area, as far as he knows, and observes that they must be wanderers. The area belongs to the wanderers, and he decides to do some research. He finds his battery dead and realizes he needs to find a portable power bank. He comes downstairs and thinks about his team, missing them. He opens a drawer to find a power bank when someone appears from the side and asks him who he is. He is shocked and excited to see Mr. Yun there and happy to see he survived and is alive. Mr. Yun then tells him the whole story of how everyone who was working overtime was put in the first scenario. Mr. Yun reveals that he killed Mr. Kim himself and abuses him, saying he always used to give them an earful. He stabbed his neck with a pen, and the blood seemed to excite him. He says he feels like he is in a game. Dokja asks him if he is alone there, and he replies that he has a group with him. Mr. Yun asks where Dokja has been all this time, mentioning that he doesn't think he's seen him in the building. He asks Dokja where he has been all this time. Dokja replies that he was in the Gwangan area, but something happened there, and he calls him an unlucky guy. Mr. Yun says he doesn't need to clear the scenarios himself, and if he stays hidden, the others will clear the scenario for him. He says there's no point in risking his life and that there is no need to worry about anything, because wanderers like them have gathered to form a group. He shows him his group, which has a large number of people. A man observes his presence and asks Mr. Yun about the guy with him, and he replies that he is a work colleague of his and that he bumped into him. The boy asks him if he is a wanderer, and mentions that they are not accepting people from other groups. Dokja asks him about the boy, and he replies that he is the manager of the coin farm. Dokja asks him what the coin farm is, and Mr. Yu takes him to a place where Dokja is shocked to see the situation. A man is beating another one brutally, and others are cheering for him, asking him to beat him more. They ask him to kill him, saying it's the best he can do for now. The constellation that loves the Colosseum is overjoyed. Dokja is shocked to see the situation, and Mr. Yu tells him that the players are the kings of the video game industry, and the CEO is the king of Microsoft. He asks Dokja who he thinks is the king in the new world. Dokja asks him if they are using the coins paid by the constellations. He replies that many constellations love stuff like this and pay them coins, which they are gifted in return for food. Dokja thinks this thing appears in TWSA 2, but he didn't expect to see it this early. However, many constellations are bored with the fights taking place in the cages. Dokja thinks they are not making much sense since they are in their early stages. Mr. Yu says he arrived on time, and they see something very interesting. They have put a man in the cage, and Dokja asks him if he isn't from Microsoft. The man is screaming for help and asking them to open the cage. Mr. Yu says he once said that games these days weren't desperate enough and tells him that players don't open up their wallets to a game with a generic plot. He thought about it, and he was right. A man throws a dagger toward them, and some constellations wonder what is happening. Mr. Yu calls one of them and asks him to get the picture. He then asks Doc Ye if he remembers these people. They are the head of the department, deputy manager, and director. With this, a few constellations announce the start of the Colosseum. Suddenly, the boy suits up an armorer with a notification to enact his revenge. Mr. Yu asks him what he is waiting for and asks him if he has forgotten what they did to him. He tries to persuade him, saying they took his presentation and pretended as if he did it himself, and the deputy manager worked with him like a slave. A few constellations sympathize with the newbie, and a constellation that loves vengeance wants the newbie to take revenge. Some constellations are interested in the new plot unfolding. He forces him to take the dagger and attack them, and with this, a few constellations prepare themselves to gift their coins. Some constellations want to see the revenge take place, and constellations who love the Colosseum are preparing their coins. Dokya indicates that they are even creating plots for the constellations. Meanwhile, a man calls others from behind, saying they have some fresh meat and asks them to lock them up. Dokya seems to recognize the girl. They discuss putting on a new show with her, and Dokya recognizes her as the plagiarist Sangahan. She is unconscious, and a man is discussing all the constellations that have their eyes on this place. Dokya recognizes her as the plagiarist Sangahan. Everyone watches the fighting between the employees and cheers them on for killing each other. Dokya thinks she will definitely die if he leaves her like this, but if he keeps her alive, she will get in his way. Aside from him, she knows the most about this world. The scenario has changed a lot, so a lot of what she knows is useless now, but still, he should keep her alive. Suddenly, he realizes what he is saying and wonders if it is right for him to decide who to keep alive and who to let die based on how useful they will be. Meanwhile, Mr. Yu comes to him and says he can give her to him if he promises him one thing. Dokya asks him what he means by this, and Mr. Yu asks him to introduce him to his group because they are preparing to expand their forces. He observes his swords and says he seems fairly well equipped. Dokya replies that he can do this for him, but in return he wants him to stop this fighting. And in the meantime, the fighting is happening, and the people are enjoying the show. Mr. Yun asks him what he means by this. He is shocked when Dokya asks him to let these people go. He replies that he should know better than this, that they've known each other for a long time, and it's not like them to say something like that. Dokya is shocked when he tells him about reading that web novel and talks about the past when he was always wearing those dark clothes. His only friends were him and a couple of his colleagues. Only people like Sangha tried talking to him sometimes. Dokya asks him what that has to do with anything. Mr. Yun asks him if he is secretly enjoying this and says he is just like him. He reminds Dokya that they were in the C department together and asks him to remember what the others called them at work. Lab rats, good-for-nothing game testers with nothing better to offer. He asks him to look toward those people now, and they are the people who used to look down on them. He proudly tells him that they rack in 5,000 coins daily and earn them without having to clear any scenarios. He tells Dokya that is exactly what their company did for the game monetization models. Suddenly, the earlier boy calls them, drops his dagger, and says he can't do it anymore. Mr. Yoon calls him angrily and says he has ruined his plan. Some constellations are disappointed by the turn of events, and Dokya calls him over, saying there is a better way to get the coins if he is after them. He asks Mr. Yoon about the way and asks if there's a way to spice things up there. Dokya says they can use the constellations that are exciting things. They ask him about the method, and they are all ears to hear about him. Dokya activates his blade of faith, says what constellations really love, and strikes a cell forcefully, breaking it. Mr. Yun asks him what he is doing and why he broke the cage. Dokya strikes another cage, freeing people, and then breaks multiple cages at once, freeing Sangha too. Some rush toward him to stop him, but he attacks them with his sword, cutting their legs and injuring 2 people. Mr. Yun angrily asks him what he is doing. Dokya smiles and says he is thanking him for creating a situation that the constellations would really love. He receives multiple notifications that the constellations are happy with his decision, and they have gifted him 8,000 coins. He asks Mr. Yun why he needs to make a farm when it's this easy to earn coins. Mr. Yun asks his men to get and kill him. After some time, he lifts Sangha, and she asks him what he is doing. Dokya replies that she was pretending to be passed out so she could kill them all at once when their guards were down. He says he will leave her to them, but she asks him to wait. She says she is out of health and mana, and if he saves her, all the constellations in his channel will leave. She asks him if he doesn't know that they hate seeing things drag on. Dokya asks her if she wants him to save her, and a constellation looking forward to a hero clasps his hands in anticipation. She tells him it's a cliché because the hero saved a beauty in distress, and she thought he didn't like clichés. Dokya kicks a man and says she is wrong about two things. One, he is not a hero, and the second, she is not a beauty. Meanwhile, the wanderers are gathering from other places, and he is notified that he has saved the life of someone of his own species, and his karma points have increased. It is revealed that karma points are required to use the effects of the King of No-Killing, and he gains a point whenever the system decides that he has saved someone. This means that Sangha would have died if he had left her there. She gets angry when he calls her ugly and asks him to let her down. He throws her to the ground. She shouts at him, saying she didn't mean it like that. Dokya asks her to fight with him if she loves clichés. He has set the stage for her, where all the wanderers are ready to attack them. Sangha says that she may like clichés, but holding hands with a former enemy of hers is much too passé, even for her. She gets up and says they will quickly finish this and move on to the next stage. Dokya says it's too late for her to try and look cool now. Thanks for watching. Everyone, I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated. And hey, drop a comment if you have thoughts or new ideas or just want to say hi. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care and stay awesome.